Welcome to my mech guide. With set 3.5, this comp has changed a lot and has a lot of different carries you can run. We'll go over the build, what items you make, how to play the early, mid, and late game, how to position with this comp, and how the different galaxies changes your game plan. The build is quite flexible as there are multiple carries you can run, and we'll go through all of them, but most of the time this will be your level 7 board with Victor as your main carry. You can also run Shaco as your main carry if you have the items for him. At level 7 you will add in Demolitionist, preferably you add in GP, but Sigs can also work if you can't find GP. At level 9 you will add in whatever legendary you need to counter the other players, and we will talk more about which one you add in specifically in the late game part of the video. One option with this build is also to slow roll for Annie and Rumble 3-star, but this requires you to be uncontested as well as having quite high health, as you will fall off until you find the 3-stars. But in most of my games, I go to level 8 and 9 instead of slow rolling for 3-star mech units. The only core item in this comp is Morello for Victor. Without this item, he can't carry properly. After that, his second item wants to be Blue Buff, or Sojin can work as a replacement, but Blue Buff is a lot better. Most of the time, you will not get 3 items for Victor as you need 3 on the mech, but if you are able to make 3 Victor items, the third one wants to be either an AP item like Deathcap Ludens or Hosh, or a defensive item like Trapclaw or GA. The only core item for the mech is Titan's Resolve. This is by far the best item on the mech, as it very often gets to 50 stacks. Your second and third items want to be Shroud, Bramble Vest, Hosh, QSS, or Trapclaw. Scout the lobby to see what items you need. Trapclaw counters Teemo, Jinx, and Irelia. QSS counters Zephyrs as well as CC heavy frontlines like Astros or Protectors. Hosh is an item that can turn your mech into a carry, but if there's a lot of burst damage in the lobby like 6BM Yi or Jins, it's not going to be that good. Bramble Vest counters IE as well as units like Irelia and Jhin, so if there's a lot of Cyber players and Jhin players, you want to build this item. Shroud is a great item against comps that are reliant on spellcasts. This item is great versus Star Guardians or Xerath and Janna. Some other great items you can make are Warmogs, Bloodthirsters, D-Claw, Ionic Spark, and Zizirot. These items are not great on the mech, but they are not bad either. So build these if you can't complete the previous ones mentioned. Shaco needs both GA and BT if he's going to carry. Typically you only run Shaco as your carry if you find both him and the items early. I very rarely run Shaco as a carry in any of my games, but most of the time, he just holds the GA for GP. GP wants GA, and after that, you can put AP items on him, but don't stack your GP unless you have GA. Some other good support items you can make is Spear Sojin on Soraka, and Zephyr on Shaco. I have made an early game guide where we go more in depth on how to play the early game, but I will go over how to play the early game for mech specifically here. Carousel priority is Chain, Glove, Tier, then Rod. After that, you want to pick up units that you can 2-star and that synergize well together. The best opener for mech is either Brawler Rebels, where Malphite holds the mech items and Sigs holds the Victor items, or Star Guardians with Vanguards, where Poppy holds the mech items and Ari holds the Victor items. It is important to play your strongest board in the early game, so don't go for these openers if you have something else that is stronger. Great items to make in the early game are Bramble Vest, Ionic Spark, Hosh, Blue Buff, Zephyr, Warmogs, and Thieves' Gloves. As a general rule, you want to make an item when you have at least 4 or more components on your bench, but in some cases you might have to hold as there are no good items to make. Most of the units you are playing in mech don't show up until the mid game, and you will be running another comp until then. If you find Annie or Rumble in the early game, you want to hold them on your bench if you're not playing them, but do not lose Econ over an Annie or Rumble. If you find an early Fizz or Victor, you always want to hold them as they are core units in our comp and can be hard to find at times. In the early game, it is important to scout, not only to see how strong everyone else is and how they are positioned, but you can see how many other people are playing mech by seeing if they slam either QSS or Titan's Resolve, or if they are holding Annie Rumble without playing them. In the early game, if you're strong and or win streaking, you want to pre-level to 5 on 2-3. This is because you are now able to find Fizz in your shop. If you get a mech in the early or mid game, you will win streak until stage 4 in most cases. I have also made a mid game guide where I go more in depth on how to play the mid game, but I will go over it here for mech. In the mid game, you want to start holding all the mech units, but you still don't want to hold Shaco, Karma, or Soraka if you lose eco by holding them. In the mid game, you have a mid game carry that you build your board around. The best mid-game boards that transition well into mech are Brawler Rebels, where Ziggs is holding Victor items, and Malphite can hold mech items as Rumble won't do that much better with them. The other one is Vanguard Sorks, where Syndra or Ahri holds Victor items, and Jace or Poppy holds the mech items. But again, play your strongest board and don't tunnel on these boards if you have something stronger to play. In the mid game, you always want to level if you stay above 40 gold, and you always want to consider leveling if you stay above 30 gold after leveling. In almost every single game, you want to level to 6 on 3-2 as long as you stay above 20 gold. There are few situations where you don't want to level here. It is also somewhat common to level to 7 on either 3-5 or 3-6, but if you go below 40 gold after leveling, you're doing this to maintain a win streak, so you need to make sure you become one of the strongest people in the lobby if you're going to do this. Another thing you can do is to level to 7 on 3-5 and then all in by rolling to 0. This is typically done after an 8 losing streak to start win streaking and saving HP. Whenever you have downtime in the mid game, you want to scout. You need to see what comps are open and what other comps people are playing. Mech can support 2 to 3 people at max, so if there are more people going for that comp, consider pivoting. The late game starts at stage 4-1. Here you want to level to 7 and most of the time roll if you don't have the mech yet. Sometimes your current board is strong enough to carry you to level 8 or even to level 9 before you need to roll, so don't always roll at level 7 for the mech. I would say I roll at 7 in about 70% of my games to get the mech. So this will depend a lot on how good you are at playing the early and mid game in terms of saving HP. As with most comps in the game, this one too can win just off pushing to level 8 and 9 and playing different legendaries to carry you. If you're strong coming into the late game, you can also slow roll for the 3-star Annie and Rumble. To do this, you need to be uncontested, and you also need to have enough health to sack most of stage 4 and 5. Because mech is strong in the current meta, you will be contested most of the time, so make sure to scout before you slow roll. As mentioned earlier, this build is flexible, so before you roll down to find your units, it's important to have a general sense of what the lobby is playing. If there are a few magic damage comps, consider taking out 4 mystics for either 4 inful or demolitionist, and if you see that most of the lobby is burst damage, you can even consider putting in celestials. But in most of my games, I end up with this board if I roll at 7, and this board if I roll at 8. So if you're not too comfortable with scouting every turn, then just aim for these and you will do fine. At level 9, you add in a legendary to counter the other players. Urgot goes in to counter unkillable units like the mech or tanky 3-star units. Janna goes in to provide CC and to get through vanguards. Aesol goes in against comps that are reliant on spellcast like Star Guardians. Sereth can replace Victor when he's 2-starred and if you have a Rage Blade for him. Thresh is also a universally good option. You generally want to go for him if you have enough money to build a strong bench filled with legendaries. I have made a general Thresh pool tier list. Some champs are stronger versus different comps, and some are weaker versus different comps. First, I'll go over some general positioning tips with this comp, and then after that we'll go over some more in-depth examples. General positioning with this comp looks like this. You have the mech in solo frontline with Victor behind it. Wherever you spawn the mech, you want to have Victor behind it most of the time. The reason why Annie, Rumble, and Fizz are split up is so we can spawn the mech on different sides very fast. Move Annie next to Fizz, and the mech spawns all the way right side. Move Fizz next to Annie, and the mech spawns all the way left side. Keep Victor in between the 2 Mystic units to keep him protected from infuls and blitzcranks. Shaco can be wherever most of the enemy carries are. When you get in GP, you want him to be second row behind the mech. This is to not let GP get targeted so that he gets to ult. If you have GA on him, consider moving him to the front line so that his ult can go off faster. The sooner the GP ult goes off, the more value it has. When you put in legendaries, both Janna and Aesol want to be in the corners. This is so that Aesol stays alive longer and gets to drain more mana, and Janna gets a much better ultimate angles from the corners. If you're running Thresh, keep him in back row to make sure that he casts. And if you're running Urgot, position him so that he eats more valuable targets. Echo doesn't necessarily want to jump on the enemy carry, he wants to jump somewhere where he can safely ult. Now moving on to some more in-depth positioning examples. Against the first guy, the big threats are Vayne, Vi, and Echo. We want Shaco to get Zephyr'd. This is because Vayne drops aggro, so Shaco never gets to kill Vayne. We keep Victor closer to the right side so that he doesn't get targeted by Echo. Soraka is in the far left corner so that Vi targets her. Karma is on the left side of Victor. This is so that she gets targeted by Echo while also tethering Victor. The mech spawns in the middle to protect Victor from both Vayne and Irelia. GP leans a bit to the right so the Frozen Heart doesn't affect him. Against the second guy, the big threats are Syndra and Victor. We position Shaco so that he potentially jumps the Syndra. The mech spawns in the middle so that he cleaves Jarvan and Rakan. Soraka and Karma are 1 hex away from Victor so that he stays safe from the enemy Victor's laser. GP is all the way right so that he has a chance to dodge the Nico stun, while simultaneously getting a good ultimate angle as most of the enemy team are on the right side. Against the third guy, the big threats are Zed, Fizz, and Master Yi. We have to position Victor on the far left side to stay away from the infiltrators. Here, the Mystics are next to him so that they will get targeted before Victor. Although Karma might tether Soraka from here, it's more important to keep Victor safe than to buff his attack speed a bit. Shaco is positioned so that he might attack Master Yi. The mech spawns all the way right side. This is so the infiltrators will walk back up to the mech after jumping. GP is positioned so that he also has a chance to bait the infiltrators back up to the mech. Against the fourth guy, the big threats are GP, Jinx, and Fizz. The mech spawns all the way right side to make the enemy GP walk closer to the right. By doing so, we are making sure Victor doesn't get stunned by his ultimate. Soraka is getting jumped by Fizz. This is so that she tanks the ultimate and Victor stays safe from it. GP is on the far right side to again make the enemy GP walk up to the right. Victor is on the far left side to stay away from both Fizz and GP ults. Lastly, we will go over how the different galaxies change your game plan. Trade sector. Slow rolling at 7 for 3-star Rumble and Annie is more viable here. Also, since everyone has a stronger board, you need to be more careful when evaluating the relative strength of your board. Leveling aggressively is more important here, as you get better rolls twice every turn. Super dense galaxy. It doesn't change much, you just get to fit in a bit more legendaries at level 8 and 9, and you almost always put in Demolitionist at level 7. Treasure Trove. The extra items you get want to be support items and a third item for Victor. Since you have a lot more gold here, you should always be level 7 on 2-5 unless you're full lost streaking. Galactic Armory. If a bunch of chain vests and gloves get dropped, know that more people will want to play mech, so scouting is more important here. Since you get dropped more components, you can get 3 mech items and a third Victor item pretty easily. Binary Star. You'd think that mech is bad on this galaxy, but it's still pretty good. You will be uncontested on this galaxy, so don't write the mech off before the game even starts. Dwarf Planet. Mech is incredibly strong on this galaxy. Mech items are more important than anything else here, and Demolitionist has a lot more value since the mech stuns the entire enemy team in some cases. Plunder Planet. Leveling aggressively in the early game is a must. You get back the gold you lose by leveling throughout the rounds. I always level to 4 on 2-1 and very often level to 5 on 2-5. Loose streaking in the early game is terrible on this galaxy. Salvage World. You can slam any item you want to, just be careful to not slam items you don't want later on champs you need later, like Annie, Rumble, and Shaco. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to get better at TFT, join the Discord. It is filled with hundreds of other players who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over on the Discord as well. So take care and see you in the next video.